Hi everyone, it's William with the Grand Duke Dmitri Diary Series on YouTube. We're doing diary entries from February 1940 when Dmitri was a patient at Sanatorium Schatzalp in Davos, Switzerland, and that's where he's writing. So our recap from the last video, his doctor had told him that some alarming symptoms he was having were actually just caused by stomach trouble. I mean, not even gastrointestinal tuberculosis, which truly he did not have, but just stomach trouble in general. Whether that was true or not, I don't know. I can only say that it's true that he did not have tuberculosis of the digestive tract. Anyway, that explanation was good enough for him. So he stopped worrying about it, more or less. He had a new camera, Kodak Retina 2, and he was quite excited about that. And he had already taken some pictures, and he was invited on an outing to watch the Parsen ski derby. So he would have taken the Parsenbahn, the Standseilbahn there up to this very high, like more than 8,000 feet high point on the mountaintop to watch the ski derby. And he was happy about that because he rightly, I think, equated it with he went at the invitation of a doctor, and he rightly equated it with the idea that the doctor would not have invited him on this outing if he was medically fragile at that time and hadn't been told about it. All right, and so the main point of connection between this diary entry and the new one that we're starting with is that on the 26th of February, he writes, the Bolsheviks are advancing on Vyborg, and it's already being shelled. The Finns are pleading for help. I feel well these days. Okay, well, we don't need the health update, just that the Bolsheviks are advancing on the Finnish town of Vyborg island, and it is being shelled. Okay, so there's going to be major fighting there soon, not yet. And that's what he's going to be referring to very quickly in the new diary entry, which is 27th February 1940, a Monday, and here we go. Lunched with Giselle. She came here and we ate a la terrasse. In the morning, I weighed in at 77.900 kilograms. That's plus 900, but that's not quite correct because I was almost dressed. Nice weather, afternoon on my balcony. 3 Scandinavian countries have decided to help Finland platonically, but they are refusing to provide active help and supply Allied troops. So that's a nice word, platonically. An unusual word in this context. So I had to look that up. I went straight to AI, which is cheating, of course. It's doing things the easiest way rather than going to multiple websites. So the 3 Scandinavian countries were, as one would guess, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. What other Scandinavian countries would there be, I guess? And here is what the AI told me. During the Winter War, these nations walked a thin diplomatic tightrope. They balanced a deep public sympathy for Finland against an intense fear of being dragged into a broader war with Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. The refusal of active help and Allied troops. So the diary entry specifically captures the pivotal events of mid to late February 1940. At this time, Britain and France offered to send an expeditionary force to fight alongside the Finns. However, the Western Allies required transit rights to march their troops across Norwegian and Swedish territory. The Scandinavian countries strictly refused this request for 2 main reasons: preserving neutrality. Sweden and Norway knew that allowing Allied troops on their soil would violate their official neutrality, likely provoking a preemptive invasion by Germany or a declaration of war from the USSR, and protecting iron ore. They correctly suspected that Britain's true motive was not just helping Finland, but seizing the strategic Swedish iron ore mines in Gällivare and the Norwegian port of Narvik to cut off Germany's war supply. Okay. Yeah, that's what AI says. If you know differently, then feel free to let me know. So Dmitri had referred to this agreement earlier in February, this agreement between Britain and France to help Finland, to send an expeditionary force, and that never came about, and that it was such a delicate situation. Alfred Bruyere talked about that in one of the videos, February videos that I made, February diary entry videos that I made. So it wasn't clear to me that the reason that fell apart was because of transit rights. I mean, maybe that wasn't the whole reason. Maybe that was part of it. I don't know. Anyway, that makes sense that neutral countries couldn't allow actual troops, an expeditionary force, to cross their territory. But I thought Dmitri had said that it was just to help with supplies and logistics and that sort of thing. He never mentioned troops. But anyway, this is now the end of February, so things have changed, and the three countries, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, who are going to be helping platonically, but refusing to provide active help or let Allied troops come through. Okay, on February 19th, my mother's birthday, 1943, though. This is February 19th, 1940. King Gustav V of Sweden officially confirmed this stance. He publicly denied Finland's appeals for direct military intervention and rejected any Allied troop transit. Norway and Denmark held the exact same line. So that's exactly what Dmitri's talking about. What they agreed to do? Well, while they refused to enter the war officially as combatants, the Scandinavian countries provided massive indirect humanitarian and military material aid. Sweden even designated itself a non-belligerent rather than strictly neutral, which allowed it to bypass certain international laws regarding wartime aid. Their combined assistance included volunteers, massive material aid, and humanitarian support. They took in over 70,000 Finnish children who were evacuated, some of them undoubtedly from Vyborg, and provided large shipments of food, clothing, and medical supplies. And that was one of the things that a Swedish friend told me when I was talking about Dmitri's discussion of the Winter War, and when Dmitri had explicitly said, why isn't Sweden helping? And, Sweden was in this awkward position because they didn't want war with other countries. They didn't want to give up their neutrality, but they were helping in other ways, as we can see. And my friend specifically brought up volunteers. And apparently the government did not forbid or even discourage volunteers from going and fighting. Okay, so the next diary entry, 28th February 1940, Tuesday, nice weather, morning and afternoon on my balcony. Nothing new has happened. I feel better. Great interest has been generated by the arrival of Wells, sent by Roosevelt to rebuke Germany, Italy, and England. Naturally, nothing will come of it. Okay, again, very interesting, but this is a completely different topic. This is not the Winter War. It's officially there's war between the countries that Dmitri mentions, and yet things are still being sorted out. Who's going to be fighting on what side when it comes to Russia, for instance, and is Italy going to be a combatant? And so there's a lot to work out. So who is Wells? Sumner Wells was the Undersecretary of State sent by President Franklin Roosevelt, as Dmitri says, an American Undersecretary of State. He held that position from 1937 to 1943. And I quote from Wikipedia, in February and March 1940, Wells visited Vatican City, Italy, Germany, and France, and England to receive and discuss German peacemaking proposals. So Dmitri's take on this is interesting. Great interest has been generated by the arrival of Wells, he says. That's probably true. But then his assessment of this mission, that Wells had been sent by Roosevelt to rebuke Germany, Italy, and England, to rebuke both the Axis and one of the Allied countries. So that's interesting. And Wells would be going to France, not just Italy and Germany. Sorry, that's my little dog. I already aborted one video attempt because he started coughing. He's 16 years old and he's got this chronic cough, but it's not exactly convenient that he came up and started doing it just now. Anyway, Crispin, he's also deaf, so I can't talk to him. All right, and then Dmitri says, so he says the purpose is to rebuke these countries. Well, you know, that's not what it says in Wikipedia, although I do get the impression from what I read there that Wells was more or less seen as a busybody. He was a specialist in South America, not in Europe, but he was sort of really proactive about interfering in other countries' business, in other countries', you know, processes and that sort of thing. And so people kind of saw him as a busybody and kind of, you know, a person up on his high horse on behalf of the United States. That could also give that impression, although they were all anxious to have the United States on their side. But it didn't, at that point, you know, it didn't seem like the U.S. was going to enter the war. But so it was probably annoying to have Wells come, especially if he was doing what Dmitri says, you know, coming to say, oh, you know, you should all stop this nonsense and get along. On the other hand, apparently, according to Wikipedia, what the Germans interpreted his mission to be was to try to detach Italy from Germany. You know, which would have been quite legitimate to try and do that. That's something that, you know, we should have tried to do. But yeah, the whole rebuking thing, I don't know. Dmitri is obviously annoyed by this, so he's interpreting it in that way. And then he says, naturally, nothing will come of it. And naturally, he was right. Nothing did come of it. We all know what happened, that Italy and Germany and you know, Italy was not detached from Germany, and the war would explode. By May, it would explode. Later on, he would issue something, I think in 43, called the Wells Declaration. It was a response to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, which, of course, by that time was already negated. Although, and now my big dog is barking. I don't know. I don't know whether the Wells Declaration maybe came before the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact was violated. But the Wells Declaration, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, had given Germany's approval to the Soviet Union to occupy the Baltic states. And the Wells Declaration was denying the legitimacy of that. But anyway, returning to what Dmitri said, this guy's not going to accomplish anything, and Dmitri was right. Okay, so do we have time to go on? I don't think we better. I mean, I think I'll end up going 20 minutes or more if we go on to the next topic, because the next topic is another big one. This time it is about a proposed joint Anglo-French operation that involves the Soviet Union, and that Dmitri is upset about, and that's supposed to be top secret, but everybody seems to know about it. So maybe some of you already know what this is. Anyway, if you don't, come back tomorrow and you'll be surprised, I guess. So yeah, well, I hope you come back well, probably not tomorrow, but for the next video. I hope to see you then. All right, bye.